Hi, I'm Bryant, tutoring high school biology. Today's topic, natural selection. This is the major force that drives evolution, that creates species, that makes populations change over time. Big stuff. And I'm going to cover it right now. Now, you may notice that this board is very white. That's because I'm going to do a lot of what I like to call drawing. Some people disagree. But anyway, moving right along. Natural selection is based on this principle called survival of the fittest. That means the animals, the creatures, the plants, whatever, that is most likely to survive will survive. Those that cannot survive will die. It's a very simple principle, but let me illustrate how this can cause evolution. Let's start out with a population of horse-like creatures. Kind of like that. Here's a horse-like creature. Within this population, there will always be some slight, if you will, differences between one member or the other. And I'm going to draw some food. Here's some food at kind of ground level. Here's some food a little bit higher. And here's some food a little bit higher. Now, this initial population of all horse-like creatures, they're going to go for the easy food. And after a while, as more horses are added to the population, or horse-like creatures really, it's going to tax this food source. And ultimately, it'll vanish. So what's going to happen? If your neck isn't short enough and you can't reach this thing up here, you might die. If you die, though, you can't have any kids. So that means the ones that don't have the randomness to have longer necks will die off, and the population will change. It'll have longer necks in general, because the ones without longer necks will not survive. So the longer necked ones do survive, like this one and this one, and they'll mate and they'll have children. Right, I'm just going to erase some of these that passed away. Alright, and so now we have a bunch of children. These all have longer necks than the last one. But again, remember, random mutation. Some of them will have still longer necks. Of course, some of them will have shorter necks, so on and so forth, but here we go. But now, see, now that the entire population is all longer necked, this food source might disappear, because they're all eating from it. Now what happens? Of course, the ones with the longer necks who can reach this food source will survive, and they will have children. But the ones who don't have long enough necks might perish. And again, the population changes as the ones with the shorter necks pass away, and the ones with the longer necks are the ones that remain and have children. This is an idea of natural selection. The ones with the longer necks are the ones that are most fit, if you will, to survive. And so they do. And ultimately you get the giraffe. Or at least that's how we believe it happened. That's how natural selection works, a survival of the fittest. The ones that are randomly more fit to survive, they will survive. But now I'm going to call attention to this word called a niche. I've actually just illustrated the niche. It's right here. This is a niche, a food source. Now, the idea of niche also encompasses the idea that we can escape predators. We're going to assume that the predators are going to do some work too, and some giraffes will be too slow and they'll get eaten. And so the population will change again. The faster giraffes will survive and have faster kids, so on and so forth. Same idea as moving upward. These longer-necked giraffes will have found a niche in this food source. That is what they're going to do. Now, of course, some of this food source might go back on the lower levels. This will also offer a niche. And if there's some with shorter necks, they might still be able to get that. And so they have a different niche and they can coexist. But that's the idea of natural selection. You evolve to fulfill a niche. If your niche disappears, like it all gets eaten, then your particular trait will disappear. As long as you can get a niche, if you have a longer neck, for instance, then your trait will survive and the entire population will change over time, years, decades, centuries, so that more of your trait will occur. To recap, natural selection drives evolution. It's based on this principle called survival of the fittest. If your certain trait can survive, then it will survive. If it cannot, then it will die. In the example of giraffes, if you have a population of short-necked horse-like creatures that can get lower food, then they will do so. But as that food source disappears, as you get more horses, then you'll need horses with randomly longer necks to get the higher food. The ones that have short necks will pass away since they don't get anything to eat. The ones with the randomly longer necks will survive and have longer necked children. This will continue over time until you have an entire population of longer necks and the population has changed, in other words, evolved. This all follows the idea of fulfilling a niche. Since the niche of food near the ground disappeared, that niche could no longer be filled, and those that occupied that niche, the shorter-necked horses, disappeared. Whereas the ones that could reach a different niche, the higher-level food, and had longer necks, did survive because they could fill a different niche. Alright, that's all for now. Again, I'm Bryant. See you next time.